Hello and welcome to this instalment of Talkin Trim. I'm Jonathon Skinner and today we're looking at the rear seat covers, hardware and trimmed units for the Triumph TR2 and TR3 models. Now a bit of a caveat with that. Strictly speaking, I believe they're from the TR3s, but they were extremely rare. You really didn't see many cars leaving the factory with them fitted. They're often referred to as occasional rear seats for that exact reason. Not to be confused with the later TR3A and TR3B, which, although was still fairly rare, were seen a lot more commonly than, say, on the TR3s. Now, I've mentioned that they could be applicable for the TR2s as well. We certainly have seen them fitted to TR2s. In fact, we supplied kits where our customers with TR2s have fitted them. However, the fuel tank on the TR2s, as I'm sure you're aware, is bigger, and therefore the room in the back for these seats is somewhat limited. Pretty limited anyway, but yeah, with the bigger fuel tank, even more so. So I think the TR2s, it's very much a case of adapting potentially the back area to accommodate these. So just bear that in mind. So I think, rule of thumb, it's best to just sort of assume that TR2s probably didn't have them. TR3s rarely had them. Either way, they're a lovely addition aesthetically to the car. Now, we're only talking about the TR3s, not the 3As or the 3Bs. The 3As and 3Bs did have occasional rear seat units, but they were literally just a kind of base element, just the bit your bum goes on, whereas the TR3s had effectively a cushion and a backrest element to them. Now, to look in a book, unfortunately, we're not going to see one of these actually in the car because, like I said, they are trimmed, but it's relevant to the earlier cars that had the sloped rear shelf area, and they basically sat cushion there and then the backrest up against the bulkhead, hiding the bulkhead. I have actually done another video showing the differences between the TR2-3, TR3A early and TR3A late rear seats, so do be sure to check that video out at the end of this video. But that's effectively it there. You can actually see here, this is the late 3A, which had the flat rear shelf area, and that had the occasional rear seat base. Obviously on the 3As they didn't bother with the backrest because you just incorporated the rear bulkhead section there. So that gives a bit of background there. Anyway, with all that out of the way, we've got a bit of a selection here. So we've got seat covers, and they are sold as a set, so you get effectively the base and the backrest all fully sewn. Then separately we can also supply the plywood base units and also the foams. Again, they are sold separately, so effectively the covers are one kit, the base plies and backward plies are another kit, and the foams are another kit, or we can do everything for you and supply them fully assembled. So that's the gist of what this video is going to show you. Starting with the covers, you had 3-tier option. At one end of the scale you've got everything in vinyl, other end of the scale you've got everything in leather, and then you've got a middle ground option which is leather faced, which is basically the bits that touch your body as you actually sit in the seat are leather, but the surrounds etc. will be vinyl. And what we've got here is we've got two kits actually. So this tan kit here is full leather, so absolutely everything's leather, including the retainer sections here. Fully sewn, obviously. This is the base cover here, so it's genuine tuck and roll pleats as with all of our seats. We use leather cloth for the piping where the colour allows, which is about 80 to 90% of our colours. We do have the leather cloth piping. Other ones we have to revert to vinyl where the leather cloth isn't available. Be worth checking out my video on piping because we're very pedantic about trying to make sure we use leather cloth piping. A lot of other suppliers out there use vinyl piping, which is not ideal. Do refer to that video. So yeah, leather cloth piping, obviously all fully sewn, top stitch where applicable. Backrest cover, very similar. Obviously tuck and roll pleats, genuine tuck and roll pleats onto a 17mm foam padding. Obviously pipes around the edges, top stitch, etc. And you have this large flap at the back which allows it to be covered. I'll show you on the trimmed one a bit further down, because when it sits in the car it protrudes up slightly, so you want the woodwork to be finished on that. So they're effectively the covers, and like I say, these particular ones are full leather. You've got 3-tier option on that. They're sold as a set there. Plywood bases, this is obviously the base element here. They come with the T-nuts installed. That's obviously upside down just to show you the T-nuts there. You get 4 T-nuts because they had a metal bracket. Now, if you refer to the video at the end of this video that shows the difference between the different early TRs and their rear seats, I've got one of the metal brackets in there. It's kind of a one-piece bracket that went up from the ground, along underneath, joining onto there, then it went vertically again, effectively at a slight angle. That's allowed it to get fixed onto here. So that's your base one there. That's your backrest one there with all the T-nuts installed, etc. So again, we sell that as a set. Then you've got the foams sold separately. So it's a nice dense padding foam, about 2 inches thick, pre-cut to shape, ready to be used during a fitment. It's worth noting, you can see there from it, that's effectively the same size, whereas that one is actually slightly bigger, and that's done intentionally, as you're about to see on the trim set there. So now we've got the trim set. This particular one has been done in cherry red, I believe, and it's actually, yeah, this is a leather faced version. So whereas that one there was full leather, absolutely everything in leather, this one here is leather faced. So you can see here that the top pleated panel and this horseshoe surround is leather, but then the surround down here and the retainer there is vinyl. Same sort of concept on the backrest. Pleats are in leather, horseshoes in leather, but the surround here is in vinyl, as is the retainer down here. So that's what we refer to as leather faced. Not to be confused, a lot of other suppliers out there refer to seats as leather. That is our leather faced. We also offer full leather, which is obviously that version there, but other suppliers don't often offer that or distinguish between, so it can be quite confusing with that, so do keep that in mind. But yeah, the fully trimmed versions, they look absolutely fantastic. Just look at how consistent that piping is along that edge there, and this is the key. A lot of people will claim that they can do what looks like a simplistic job with these sort of trimming things, but actually it takes a decent amount of skill and knowledge to actually trim these sections here. So I would always recommend that we do the work for you. Even if you wanted to save a bit of money and use original parts, by all means send us your plywoods. If they're in decent condition, we're happy to reuse them, so that's not a problem at all. Foam's almost pointless sending us those, they will disintegrate. But yeah, certainly the plies and whatnot. As you can see, trimmed, we cut out the little holes on the back there so that you can get the fixings in, and they screw down into obviously the bracket there. Now you can see there, that's the edge of the panel. So all of that overhang there with the foam, as I mentioned earlier, that is fully intentional there. So just bear that in mind, it kind of waterfalls slightly over there. Backrest elements here, it does waterfall over again, but the actual foam itself is pretty much in line with those bits there. You can see the actual panel ends there. Again, we've trimmed out the holes there. What we've done for these ones here, we've actually just marked those there because it's semi on show. It might be a case that you just literally want to find the pinpoint hole and put the bolts through, so we just mark where the position is there for you to do a little bit of work at your end, but the rest of them we like to completely take out so that you can see exactly what's going on there. As you can see, that's got the big overlap turn of the material there to allow for when it's in the car, if it does protrude up slightly above the sort of rear deck section, then it's nice and covered and looks neat and ties in with the interior trim. So yeah, that's effectively those trimmed up seat units there, along with the hardware versus the actual covers themselves. Like I say, extremely rare, really didn't see many in these cars. They do look absolutely lovely when fitted into the car. If not completely impractical for actual usage, at least it adds a nice aesthetic to it. And of course, because they're so rare, if you were to add them to your car, then you've got a bit of a showstopper. Not many people expect to see those, but do refer to our website for photos, because we've done a decent amount of these kits over the years. I mean, we're not crazy numbers, not like anything like the front seats or carpets or trim panels and whatnot. We've maybe done, I don't know, 10 in around 5 years or so, if that. So not crazy numbers by any means, but we've certainly got a few photos on our website showing how they look when they're all fitted in the car, so be sure to check that out. Anyway, hope you found that useful. Please remember to like, subscribe and share with other classic car enthusiasts out there. And I'll see you next time.